Yo, what's good? Welcome to Countercurrents. This is your host, Petey Steele. This might be the last week that my co-host, Elena is on maternity leave. She says she wants to get back in the swing of shit next week. I mean, I'm not the fucking one that decried feminism here. Just let it be known for the record. She can take off for 3 months if she wants. But, I brought in just as good a, paternal figure to supplant her for this episode. My main man, Rahmein Mostafavi, was good.
Oh, you said it right and everything.
Did I really?
Yeah.
Fucking A.
Yeah, pretty good.
What do people say, Mostafavi?
There's all kinds of different versions. In fact, in my own family, there's contention over how it's pronounced.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you guys fight every Thanksgiving about it?
Well, as Middle Easterners, we're always fighting somebody.
Right. Where are you from? What country originally?
I was born in Iran.
Okay.
But I was born there. My dad's Iranian. My mom was just, regular brand American, German, Scotch, Irish, white person. And they moved over here when I was only about 1. And unfortunately, when I was coming up, being Iranian was shameful, and because we lived in a different world at the time. Now, you can be from a country that has issues like that, and where small-minded people are like, well, they're all terrorists, but we live in a world now where there's much more empathy.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, it was like the Ayatollah and the Ali North situation. It was like if you were from Iran, you were part of it, and people's minds weren't as open back then.
Now, where did you grow up in the States?
So the family moved to the Midwest at first.
Okay.
So we did some time. Sounds like I'm in jail, but did some time in Ohio and Indiana, and then
that's the pit of hell.
I could have been anywhere.
But
I just needed grass and dirt at the time.
Yeah.
And then they moved to Towson, right outside of Baltimore, for a few years. And
lateral move, to say the least.
We did all right, and then finally in Fairfax, Virginia, since the time I was, I think I was 11.
Okay.
Or so, and then I've been a Northern Virginia guy, D.C. guy ever since.
Fuck yeah. So how did you end up rooting for the Cubs?
My mom's family is from Springfield, Illinois.
Oh, yeah.
And I just kind of latched on.
That's
also,
capital.
When I was a kid, that's correct. When I was a kid, WGN, which is the Chicago Superstation,
yes, it
was
is.
Everywhere. And so I think that's why there's a lot of Cubs fans. Not only is it like a cute little community. Wrigley Field is awesome. Chicago is awesome. But also, back then, it was like TBS or WGN or your local team. And if you didn't have a team that you were necessarily getting behind, that was it, man. You were exposed to it. So there's a lot of Braves fans everywhere, and there's a lot of Cubs fans everywhere, I think, because of that.
Been to my share of stadiums, and I will say Wrigley's the best. The bleacher seats, anyway. That's where the
really
party's
nice.
at. It's great.
Yeah.
I went to the Crosstown Classic at what was known as Comiskey. There's something else when I went down there. Now, what do they call it?
Is it Comerica?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
That's it.
Is that it? I don't know.
It's corporate shit now.
I can't remember. Yeah.
Not that Comiskey was necessarily not a big oil magnate or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just a baseball fan. I'm not going to claim to be intelligent.
Yeah. But that was a glorious fucking game when I was out there for.
Yeah. No, I love it.
I love that city, and I love doing comedy there.
Oh yeah. I've never done it.
Go up to the Laugh Factory.
Just knock on the door and tell them to put me on.
No, I know people up there. I mean, they could
networking.
Plug you a little bit, and then not to mention just. There's some guy up there that books a bunch of people from Baltimore. Like, I know Matt Brown at Leland. And I think Lizzie Norman and some people have been out there.
Right on.
And them. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, man. I'd love to go out there. And if it could be during baseball season, that would be a dream.
Fuck yeah.
For sure. I spent a little time outside of Chicago at a little town called Malta, Illinois. Population less than 500. Again, not going to claim to know things.
Malta?
It is that.
Okay.
And it was a couple of years ago. I did a bunch of fundraiser shows for Syria, for Aleppo.
Nice.
And I broadcast that I would headline any show for free, as long as every dime went to something associated with helping the people of Aleppo or of Syria or anything to do with the war, I guess you'd call it, out there. And a bunch of people around D.C. did it. We headlined a bunch of shows here. Virginia Beach, Funny Bone did it. And then a woman that I knew right around college years, she now owns a bar out in Malta, Illinois. And she was like, "We'll do it," and
Sweet.
Paid for my flight out there, and we did a great little show in this tiny town, and her bar was amazing, and something gastropub. I wish I could remember that. I'm sure if you Google Malta, Illinois gastropub, it would Remington's maybe. It's escaping me right now, but it was fun, man. But that was as close to Chicago as I ever got to perform. But we raised about $12,000.
That's great.
In a month and a half. Yeah, it was
fucking
great.
Awesome.
You're
a big, philanthropist type of guy.
I try to care about people. Yeah.
Like, I mean, even most recently in the comedy scene, I don't know if you want to take it there or not, but that whole, call it out of certain venues. And
oh, yeah. I don't know if that's philanthropy.
I mean, it's sort of like oversight in a sense.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't like to stand by and watch abuse of any artist, and
right.
I've been doing it long enough to where I think I have a pretty good beat on what the value of this craft is, and then
right.
also just witnessing especially the younger, newer comics
sure.
Get abused by venues that know they'll bend over and take it. So, I understand that I'm a person that has a little less to lose than some other people because I produce my own events, and thank goodness at this time I have no trouble getting booked places. Yep. So for me to stand up to a little show like that is like, all right, so what if I get banned from the State Theater? Like,
right.
Who cares? For
Fucking
me, I don't care. But I understand that there are people that feel the same as I do, but they're a little less willing because, understandably, they want to work as much as possible.
Right.
I'm happy to do that, and I'm proud to do that. I don't know. I really don't know what the pulse is in the DC scene. Is it like, Rahmein, he needs to shut the fuck up, or is it like, oh, thank goodness he's saying something? I really don't know.
I've talked to a few people about it on the low and whatnot, and not just old heads who were like, definitely like, hey, he's right. Yeah. But then even young people too that are actually doing it. I talked to somebody who was on the way to to perform in that day.
Oh, right on.
And they were like, fuck, I know, and I was like, okay, why are you doing it? Well, and I wasn't telling them you cannot. Or
right.
Like
no, I would never. I don't blame the artist.
Because I've done it 2 times. Yeah. And when I did
Where'd you spend your $10? That's huge.
Actually, I didn't get anything then. We didn't get dick.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen your comedy. That's about right.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, Rahmein's a philanthropist. He books me. You know what I mean? No. But actually, they were great, fun shows in terms of, like, you're in a big theater. And I think that's kind of one of the selling points
of course
the packet.
For sure.
And the acoustics are fucking loud.
Yeah,
and you
cool
walk
show.
out feeling like you fucking crushed.
Yeah, no doubt.
Know?
Fun show for sure.
That being said, principally, that's not the thing.
Yeah, there's so many pieces to it, and part of it is just educating, or at least giving my 2 cents to those that I see. And I've also reached out to people that I see on the list, and especially the vets, and I go, hey, really think about this. What are you doing here? And then some of the younger people that I'm just sort of cool with, that I feel comfortable reaching out and going, I support you. I want you to thrive. Yeah. And I think one of the ways you can help do that for yourself is watch out for XYZ. And from a business standpoint, look at all these numbers.
Right.
Somebody's walking with a chunk. You're giving yourself away for free, which as a producer, my producer side looks at that and goes, oh, you're willing to work for $5 or $10 on a Saturday? Hell, I'll book you in Lorton. Yeah. I'll book you at a private. And I'll pay you $10, and I'll take $2,000.
Like, now the cutthroat Mostafavi comes out.
Yeah. Now I would never do that, but that's how I could totally look at it from you're devaluing your craft,
right?
And if it's just, and I wrote this metaphor online. It's like if you live in a neighborhood where all the homes are worth $1 million,
right?
And then you sell yours for $200,000,
the other
just lowered the value of everybody's house,
right?
So we're all the houses, and if people are doing gigs for $5 or $10. then the venues look around and go, guess that's the value of comedy. Because art always sets its own value.
Yeah.
Whether it's a portrait or a pottery or singing or a band or anything, all of us set our own price.
Right.
But think about it. What if nobody in the scene did anything for less than $100?
Be pretty crucial.
Then we'd all make at least $100. Now, there's not always people that are worth $100. I'm just saying, if no one performed at a ticketed event for less than $100, we would get $100. I'm not saying everyone's worth that.
I think for the most part that's true. I think there'd be some people, though, if I saw them get $100, I'd go up and rob them for $35 on like general principle.
I don't disagree with you.
You know?
I'm simply saying we set our own market value.
Yeah, no. And I've actually seen this in – I mean, I'm a longtime hip-hop fan. Some of the more underground that are actually burgeoning lately – acts have started making albums and selling them online for like $100, sometimes for $300 or something in limited edition.
Right on.
And they're getting it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy fuck. Like, I'm not going to pay that much for that fucking album. But when I have like all these old classics, I mean, they're great albums, don't get me wrong. But, you know, I still respect it. I'm like, that's crazy. You guys
put it out there, man. If they're getting it, that's great.
Yeah.
But, you know,
but you got to say no to some things.
I think you just got to look at the numbers. Now, if somebody's doing a charity event, you know, there's allowance for that. If there's no charge at the door, there's allowance for that. But we still have to be careful anytime that we're performing. Like, who's taking a chunk here? You know, just because somebody's not charging at the door doesn't mean that the venue didn't pay that producer $1,000 to put on a show.
Right.
You just got to be cautious with that and know your value. That's all. You know, and people that are in the top 10% of the performers in the D.C., Baltimore, whatever area, we need to set the tone.
Sure.
Because quite truly, union or no, if the top 10%, 5% or whatever absolutely had a minimum for given circumstances, you know, obviously there'd be a scale. Tuesdays are different than Saturdays. But if every one of us stuck to it as if it was a union, we'd get it.
Yeah.
Or there'd be worse comedy shows out there. There'd be shows that suffer because only the people that aren't worth the money will do it. Then attendance goes down, comedy suffers, and we all struggle.
That's the thing. Like, and I think that makes producers get sharper too. Like, I'll remember when Brock Snyder started his whole thing. You know, even before the condominiums, he would have these couple of venues, usually in like, you know, blacktops or like big beer gardens, big open expanse spaces. Didn't even necessarily make sense for a venue, but he would add things. Like, he would have this one girl that could do these fucking crazy acrobatic things with like big strings, or sometimes she'd come out with fire and everything.
Okay, so spectacle.
She was a hottie too, so that didn't hurt.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, we would go out there and there'd be 25 people in a lineup. And I remember doing one of them and just looking at the crop of talent and being like, this sucks. And then he would hit me up because I've known him a while. We went to the same high school and stuff. And he'd say, hey, bro, you free tonight? And I would just start saying, I'm free if you got $20, but I'm not coming out to that fucking jamboree and doing cartwheels and shit for anything like, you know, free Cokes you put out or something, you know, guy. And he would start doing it. And then a couple of these newbies found out, or they saw it and they got mad. And I was like, you didn't ask him. Sorry, but that's the way it's got to go. I mean, like, and eventually he trimmed down the fat, and now he's got these great apartment shows, and everybody gets a little something money-wise. And I'm sure he gets fucking some serious chunks. But, you know, good for him. I'm not mad at him.
I mean, at the end of the day, producers, they're the ones that are leveraging risk also. Right. And in any type of business, and as a comedian, as a producer, we are the CEO of our business.
Right.
And certainly, the more you hedge on that bet, the more you deserve.
That's right.
You know, not that you should go, you know, just gouging, but at the end of the day, you know, like if you produce a show, it's high risk. If you're guaranteeing a headliner $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 to come out, and you manage to sell a gross number of tickets that's like $30,000, $40,000, you know, minus your marketing, minus your insurance, my XYZ, and you walk with as much or more than the headliner, well, good for you. If it wasn't for you, there'd be no show, and you could have lost if you didn't sell a ticket. You were down $3,000 to $10,000. So I think risk is worth reward.
Fuck yeah. So now with that, I mean, it's interesting to watch you two as like not just a good comic, but like as a business guy in terms of the way you've spread out kind of your shows. Like you've got these things in Arlington and Ware and Lorton in these like wine valleys, right? There's some kind of thing with wine, right?
Well, I do some winery shows.
Wineries, okay.
And then, everyone will do a brewery here and there. But my staples are out in Fredericksburg at a Marriott, where I've been doing shows for almost 9 years, and at the Workhouse Art Center in Lorton, where I've been for 7 or 8 years. Really it started in Fredericksburg because I lived in Fredericksburg. Okay. And there was nothing there. Yeah. And I was driving, an hour to do an open mic back then, and I thought, well, let me grab some of these funny people from the city and bring them out to Fredericksburg, and then it just grew. So, my niche for Fredericksburg and Lorton is not only do I try to put on a very professional show. I have a theatrical background. Lighting and curtains are very important to me. Yeah. I'm very picky about that. So I feel like I produce a good-looking room, and then I feel like I have fairly good taste in who is funny, and then I present them to people that are generally not exposed to that level of talent in a town where they just don't get it brought to them. If they want to travel north or south on 95, an hour and a half, they can do it. But I try to save them that trip. I try to make it reasonably priced, and try to make every single show impactful. And then, like you said, I try to produce valuable mics, whether it's an open mic or a small showcase or something in Arlington. And now, recently I've got couples therapy that's growing.
Tell us about that. I have yet to go to one, and I should have gone tonight when I was thinking about it earlier.
Yeah, that would have
made some fucking sense. But so the concept is it pretty much self-explanatory by the name?
Kind of, sort of, and it's also still evolving. I'm still mastering exactly how I want it to go, but it's I assume I can say DC Improv on this podcast. I'm sitting in a different club, so that the improv has been really good to me. Actually, the first time it was ever produced was at the DC Draft House.
Oh wow!
They took a risk on me, and I purchased a red chair and a red couch, and threw them in the back of my minivan. I remember my kids were crammed into inside the crevices of the couch because I couldn't fit all 3 kids in the couch and chairs. So. And we hauled it over here, and we set up the shows, and they were pretty good. We had some luck. I think we did it for a few months. I understood that the show could be good, but the chemistry of the room wasn't exactly right for the level of intimacy that I needed for it to grow. So at the time, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I also, whenever I produce a show, it's got to be a positive symbiotic relationship, or I feel guilty. Yeah. I hate it if I feel like somebody's doing me a favor or if I'm costing them money. Yeah. So it started to get like that. I was like, oh, God, we got 20 people at this show, and if they're not buying drinks, I can't remember the deal at the time. I think there was a low guarantee, and I just felt like, man, I just feel bad about this. So we let it fade out, and then a little while later, I hooked up with the improv, and for whatever reason, the chemistry, the marketing, maybe my maturity and knowing the show a bit better, it hit the ground running, and we've sold out. Tonight was 14 shows in a row, so over a year's worth of sold out shows, and they continuously sell out 1 to 3 weeks in advance, which is great. But yeah, the crux of the show, it's couples oriented, but we get a lot of singles in there, get meetup groups, bachelorette parties. It's a different flavor than stand-up. There's some stand-up in the beginning just to get everybody warmed up, give the comics an opportunity to let the crowd get to know their personality. And then I try to play a couple of games with the crowd. I've got some goofy things, interactive things that I do with them. I try to give out a prize or something if they participate in the show. And then we have a Q&A section where we take issues from the crowd. I call them patients. They're the patients at the therapy session. And one at a time, we go through their issues and try to address them from a comedic standpoint, of course.
So what's a typical issue, like a rectal dysfunction?
You see everything from maybe erectile dysfunction, but it's a lot of people like to ask about anal. That's a big one.
Okay.
And then there's normal stuff like tonight we had he doesn't like the way I put dishes in the dishwasher, so he rearranges my dishes, and then we got to figure out, okay, well, can we realistically address this? Can we comedically? Can we do a combination of those two things? And I try to, as the host, I try to put the onus upon my guests, the guest therapists, which are obviously they're the two comedians from earlier, and I have them back up, and I try to spin it to them. And generally speaking, because we're just naturally funny people in conversation, they spin it into something humorous, or I'll toss it out to the crowd. And some people like to get involved, and usually it ends up in a pretty good way. Comedically, we have a very good time. Mm-hmm.
So what's the temperature on anal these days?
Yeah.
At these shows, like, what does the rectal thermometer say about
how
popular that is? Is that a common question?
It's interesting. I mean, I've had couples that the woman wanted it and the dude wouldn't do it, and then we have the opposite, which I think is a bit more typical, but. I think eating ass is a bit more trendy than fucking ass right now. Yeah, so
yeah, you hear a lot about it.
Yeah, there's not. I don't know. I don't know if anal's a big thing right now. I'm not sure. I mean, not in the hetero
you were saying
community.
It was when I asked about erectile dysfunction. That's why I asked for elaboration.
Oh, I was saying anal. I'm not sure how trendy anal is right now. But I mean, in the
is that a trending topic though that comes up a lot?
I get it a lot. I think some people write things just because they think they're going to be funny. Yeah. And anal is funny at the end of the day. But I try to make it a very inclusive show. I'm always sure at the beginning of the show to absolutely say, this is not a heterosexual couples show.
Right.
Regardless of what you're into, who you touch, what you're attracted to, who makes you come, what makes you come, this is okay.
Virgins allowed.
Anything. I don't care. Couples, triads, groups, kinds. Orgies,
country and west,
gay, bi, gender fluid, anything. I don't care. We all are in a relationship or want to be one way or another.
Okay, so how many people of those other groups than just heteronormative things do you have in attendance or that come out and ask questions and say, hey, I'm gay, I don't like the way that Tim unloaded the dishwasher or something or whatever
the way you say it sounds like a metaphor, but I think we're actually talking about unloading the dishwasher.
I was just thinking of a dude's name.
I mean, they're there. Most people, I mean, I don't poll the room who's gay, who's straight, who's somewhere in between.
No, I know that, but I mean, do you have people that jump up and say, "Hey, I'm so and so. I represent this. Thanks for being so inclusive."
Not in the middle of the show, but I've had. I mean, there's been lesbian couples, gay couples, triads, all those sorts of things, and they. I love it when they chime in because, at the end of the day, everyone's problems are the same.
Yeah.
And that's sort of an eye-opener at these shows. It's like, oh, wow, you don't have to be a straight heterosexual couple to not like someone that's snoring, sleeping next to you. Yeah. That's everybody. And so, obviously it's comedy, but it is nice when comedy can bridge the gap and make everyone feel quote-unquote normal in one way or another. So, it's been a really fun show. And now I'm taking it up to New York City for the first time. It'll be at the Stand next Friday. I'm at at New York City.
Number one club in NYC.
Yeah, I'm excited. I got hooked up. Old boy Stavros Halkias put in a good word for me, and
that's great.
We connected, and so I'll be up there with Kat Radley and Josh Johnson, who are both Daily Show writers.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. Hopefully, I can sell the tickets up there.
I think so. I mean, all those shows tend to sell out. And one thing about the Stand, they have fantastic food, too.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, that's a big draw.
Oh, good.
As well as the great comedy.
I'm excited about that, too. Yeah, they were kind enough to put me on a show the day before, and then I'll do couples therapy the next day. And then while I'm up there, I don't do a lot of time in New York City. Paris Sachet hooked me up with a gig after couples therapy that night later on that evening. So I'll do a little New Yorking.
Hey.
And then come back here and hang,
Be back to basics.
That's it, buddy.
Back to William Jeffries. So
man.
My new favorite Monday night.
Ah, man, I'm cautiously optimistic. That's a new open mic, and not even that new anymore. We started it over the summer, just trying to hammer it out. But at the time, we didn't have a curtain to block that one entrance that made things acoustically a nightmare. But finally, and the people that run it, they get it. It's a bit of an investment, and so it took a little time to sort of prove that we could get people in there. Yeah, man, that curtain was because that's what it was. I had to get a soundproof, double-sided curtain. You know, it was a bit of an investment. They finally they did it for us, and ever since then, it's kind of been a different room. The feeling is really, really nice now, and so now you just got to build that following. When Monday night mics are always going to be Monday night mics. It's not going to feel like a Saturday.
That's what I like about it, though, because it's a sequestered room. You have people that are there to see comedy, and these are people that kind of like. They hate their fucking job. Like, they straight up, they're not waiting until Thursday to see comedy. They're happy they made it through, like, 1/5. This is
hope.
like
I try to put a lot of new faces on there, too. And, of course, the request is bring a couple of people. That's the hook on this mic is I tried to make it accessible for new comedians. Mm-hmm. So instead of it's not a bringer, it's also a buyer.
Yeah,
so I made it bring 2 people or buy 2 things. Yeah. Because, we both know that, like, getting 2 people to come it can sometimes just be agonizing. And then I think that precludes new voices from being able to take stages at respectable rooms. Mm-hmm. So I tried to make it a bit more. Because really, the truth about bringing people is, we as comedians want that laugh, but the venue wants the purchase.
Yes.
So I decided one way or another I need to validate this room's existence from a business standpoint. Mm-hmm. So if everybody buys some wings and a beer, they'll let us keep using it.
Wings are fucking awesome.
Amazing. Best wings in town for sure. But slowly it's becoming a little bit of a respectable mic, and that's my goal is to, nobody's making money on a fucking Monday night open mic. Right. I make a few dollars, but most of what I am guaranteed, I pay the host, which I always try to take care of anybody that works with me, and then I dump a bunch of it into marketing.
Yeah, that makes good sense.
Got to, man. I think I have no excuse if I offer an empty room to people that focused their. Like their day, if they're like, how it is when you're new, too. You're like, oh, my gosh, I'm on a mic tonight. What's my set going to be? Do I do this show? Now I don't want to fail them with a totally empty room. Not that, it happens. Luckily, it hasn't happened in a while, but I get so embarrassed about that. Even as many years as I've been in, I hate swallowing that jagged pill of an empty room.
Oh.
That I've created. So the least I can do is dump that money into marketing and do my best.
Oh, couple times, like last week, it wasn't quite as well attended, but the last 3 before that, it was packed.
We had 3 in a row that were huge, but I don't expect that. We got through. That was the holidays. That was, maybe we got lucky on that 3rd one, and then last week I think is more of what I would expect. I think there was maybe 12 or 15 people there, and to me on a Monday, if I get 12 to 15 people,
game,
that's pretty good. Was there
College
something going
football,
on? Oh, okay.
Clemson, LSU.
All right. I'm not great at keeping track of those things, but I hate to have excuses. I think there's enough population around here that I should be able to draw enough people to make the drive worth it. Some people drive an hour and a half to do 3 to 5 minutes, and I just want to be able to provide them something respectable, so that they're that they want to come back and that they feel like they got in the work that they needed for that week.
Right. And what do you got coming up?
Okay, so we had the couples therapy tonight. Tomorrow night, I'm closing 2 best of showcases at the Big Hunt show with Underground.
Okay.
Which is always an honor, especially at my age, that I still feel relevant at 43 to get down in that basement and hang with the youngins. It's validating for me.
It's a big thing to you younger comics. Just you wait.
Yeah. Well, I started late, too. I started at 34 years old.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know. I guess in a way that's an advantage because I just kind of was who I was. I didn't have to go through an evolution
That's
of
how I
being
feel
young
about
and cool.
me, and I've said that on this thing and other things too. I was 30 when I started, and I'd already gone through most of my problem stages and everything.
Oh, I hadn't been through my problems. I just mean like...
I still got some things.
I don't envy a transition. I see this with a lot of younger comics and that are talented. They're 20, 22, 25, 26, and they're cool right now. So I never had to go through the transition of being cool and relevant into being a mature, good joke writer.
Right.
Because I think you can get away with a little more
stupid shit if you're young.
Just some dumb shit that's like hashtaggy, fuck jokes, where, I don't think that I'm all that gross looking, but like at 43, it's more difficult to be like, I was fucking abroad the other day, and everybody's like, oh hell yeah, where you're just because everybody's like, I don't want to think about my dad fucking somebody. So you got you have that additional challenge of just trying to be entertaining in a demographic that you don't absolutely identify with the minute you walk into the room. You got to kind of bring them to your world, or just write jokes that are powerful enough that it transcends. So I am proud of that, and I hope it doesn't fade away, but I also think I didn't have the challenge of transitioning like a lot of comics will have that challenge as they get older. So maybe a small advantage in starting late, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're like the fucking lady in the parking lot and fried green tomatoes. Like, I got better fucking insurance, man. Like, we got good things coming up here at the DC Draft House.
Oh, yeah.
So on Friday the 24th and Saturday the 25th, we're going to have from Second City, Unbreakable, Kimmy Schmidt, and Silicon Valley, Marlena Rodriguez. And then at the Arlington Cinema Draft House, we have on the same dates, 7:30 and 10 on the 24th, and then 7 and 9:30 on Saturday the 25th from Conan, Arrested Development, and This Is Us, Moses Storm. For chances to win pairs of tickets to either one of these, please like our page on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can find us Currents DC Twitter, Counter Currents DC on Instagram, and then just Counter Currents Comedy page on Facebook. And you just follow us. It's very fucking simple.
Follow it up.
If you don't win next week, you can unfollow us and then follow us again. Beat the game. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah, man.
So, Rahmein, where can they get at you, my man?
So on the gram, it's just Rahmein88, RAHMEIN 88. I promo shows that I'm on and shows that I'm producing on there. And, I think I'd love to see everybody at Couples Therapy. It's a monthly show at the Improv, and then just look out for individual appearances,
Boom, boom.
Yeah,
well, thank you very much for coming on. This has been great.
Thanks, dude.
Well, I'll do it again sometime and, solve the rest of the world's problems.
Yeah, man. You got it.
All right.
Thanks, my brother.
Peace.